Meryl Streep, in a rare and unexpected moment of candor, made a confession that took even seasoned Hollywood insiders by surprise. Now at 76, the three-time Academy Award winner has openly named 6 actors she found difficult to work with, describing one as a master manipulator and another as beyond unbearable. In an industry where diplomacy often masks true feelings, Streep's forthrightness landed like a thunderclap. Among those she mentioned was Kevin Kline. The working relationship between Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline during the filming of Sophie's Choice has long been viewed as harmonious, given the intense emotional bond their characters shared on screen. Their portrayals, Streep as Sophie Zawistowski and Kline as Nathan Landor, were widely praised for their depth and realism. To the audience, their chemistry seemed effortless, a seamless emotional connection that captivated both critics and fans. However, behind the scenes, a quiet but significant tension was unfolding. When director Alan J. Pakula cast the two accomplished actors, he believed their shared background in classical theatre would create a strong creative alliance. Streep, with her disciplined training from Yale, and Kline, a Shakespearean actor with a gift for spontaneity, seemed like the perfect pairing to bring such emotionally complex roles to life. But as rehearsals began, it quickly became apparent that their approaches to acting were worlds apart. Streep was known for her detailed, immersive preparation. She committed herself completely to becoming Sophie, studying survivor testimonies, mastering Polish and German dialects, and analyzing trauma psychology in depth. Every aspect of her performance, from the smallest gesture to her accent, was rooted in careful research. She believed that to truly honor Sophie's story, a Polish Catholic woman scarred by unimaginable loss, she needed to build the character with painstaking authenticity. Production designer George Jenkins once remarked how Streep constructed Sophie from the ground up, reflecting the historical and emotional layers of her role through every movement and sound. Kline, on the other hand, relied on instinct and improvisation. He believed in staying emotionally open and responding in real time rather than being bound by rigid preparation. Rather than meticulously crafting Nathan's personality ahead of time, Kline preferred to discover it in the moment, often deviating from the script to explore new emotional avenues. This contrast created tension in rehearsals. While Streep worked to deliver exact emotional beats she had prepared in advance, Kline's free-form style disrupted her rhythm. Although their friction never erupted into open conflict, a palpable discomfort settled in during their work together. Matters worsened when Kline reportedly questioned the value of Streep's accent work. During one rehearsal, he asked, "Are you sure the audience is going to care more about your Polish vowel sounds than what she's feeling?" To Streep, this wasn't just a casual critique, it was a dismissal of the very essence of her approach. She viewed Sophie's voice as central to her trauma, identity, and displacement. Kline's remark struck deeply, implying that her dedication to authenticity might be misguided. Although their disagreements were never made public, insiders noted that their interactions became increasingly distant. Director Pakula had to carefully balance their differing methods, staging scenes in ways that minimized direct tension while allowing both actors to work in their own way. Ironically, this very divide may have enhanced the film's emotional intensity. The friction between Sophie's vulnerability and Nathan's instability resonated on screen, in part because it reflected the subtle conflict between the actors themselves. However, the real fracture occurred not during filming but afterward, when Kline, in a press interview, described Streep's method as academic. Even if he hadn't intended offense, the comment suggested that her dedication might inhibit spontaneity, an implication that stayed with Streep. For an actress who had poured her soul into authentically portraying the pain of a Holocaust survivor, this wasn't just professional criticism, it felt like a rejection of the emotional truth her performance was built upon. Although the film received widespread praise, Sophie's Choice went on to become one of the most acclaimed dramas of its era. Meryl Streep's Oscar-winning performance is still regarded as one of the finest in cinematic history. Yet despite the film's success, the personal rift between the two leads remained unresolved. At award shows and industry events afterward, Streep maintained a formal, distant demeanor toward Kline. The two have never collaborated again. The tension between Meryl Streep and Jeremy Irons stands as one of the most intellectually intense and quietly dramatic rivalries in film. Unlike public feuds, they stemmed from a deep philosophical divide, two brilliant actors with profoundly different interpretations of what it means to portray a character. Both came from prestigious theatrical backgrounds and were admired for their range and intellectual depth. On paper, their collaboration seemed destined to produce brilliance. In reality, it exposed the vast and unbridgeable gap between their artistic ideologies. Their conflict surfaced early during rehearsals for a demanding period drama, where both were cast in roles requiring deep emotional connection. Producers believed that their shared classical roots, Streep's training at Yale and Irons's at the Bristol Old Vic, would foster a mutual artistic language. However, rehearsals quickly proved otherwise. The very education meant to unite them had instead driven them in opposite directions. Jeremy Irons, praised for his vocal precision and physical discipline, approached acting as a refined art form. He viewed characters as carefully sculpted works, graceful, composed, and deliberately controlled. His method emphasized external techniques, voice, posture, diction. He believed in the power of suggestion over raw expression. Jeremy treats characters like beautiful objects to be polished and displayed, noted dialect coach Tim Monick, who worked with both actors. There's elegance in his restraint, but it creates emotional distance. In contrast, Streep saw acting as an act of profound empathy. To her, a character wasn't something to be molded, but a real person to be discovered through layers of emotional truth. Her process relied on deep research, historical background, personal memories, psychology, and observed behavior. Every movement, accent, or gesture was chosen not to impress, but to express honesty. She treated roles like archaeological digs, rich with buried emotion and complexity, requiring careful uncovering rather than embellishment. As a result, their shared scenes became subtle battlegrounds between these two acting philosophies. Irons's poised, often detached delivery clashed with Streep's emotionally raw realism. During rehearsals, when she sought spontaneous emotion, he responded with polished precision. When she reached for authentic intimacy, he retreated into stylized distance. To Irons, Streep's approach seemed excessive, as if she was dragging scenes into melodramatic territory that diluted their dramatic core. To Streep, Irons's performance felt like emotional avoidance, more performance than experience. The tension intensified when Irons allegedly criticized Streep's meticulous accent work, implying it was more about showmanship than storytelling. He suggested that audiences were more likely to admire her technical precision than feel connected to her characters. Streep saw this as more than a professional critique, it was a misunderstanding of her entire process. She believed technical authenticity was inseparable from emotional truth. An accent, to her, wasn't ornamental, it was a vital part of the character's psychological and historical identity. Behind the scenes, their discord wasn't loud or dramatic, but quietly uncomfortable. Crew members sensed the underlying chill. Though they exchanged professional pleasantries, true respect never turned into admiration. Directors observed how they avoided interaction between takes, how their body language stiffened when they shared the frame, and how their scenes together felt more negotiated than naturally performed. What saddened many film lovers was the unrealized potential of their collaboration. This wasn't a battle of egos, it was a clash of artistic visions, of truth, vulnerability, and the craft of performance. Fans had hoped their contrasting styles might one day create powerful on-screen chemistry. But instead, they remained parallel forces, each revered in their own right, yet creatively incompatible. A similar dynamic played out between Meryl Streep and Alec Baldwin during the making of It's Complicated. Though the romantic comedy, directed by Nancy Meyers, went on to become a commercial success and a fan favorite, its production was marked by an underlying tension. This unease, though well-contained, revealed how even experienced professionals can find collaboration difficult when their instincts and creative methods differ from the very start. Nancy Meyers, celebrated for her refined scripts and intricately crafted sets, had envisioned an undeniable spark between Meryl Streep and Alec Baldwin that would add both depth and humor to the story of a divorced couple flirting with reconciliation. On paper, the idea was flawless. Both actors were immensely talented, classically trained, and radiated charisma. Their careers showcased a seamless balance of drama and comedy, and each had demonstrated the ability to blend emotional depth with perfect comedic timing. Yet, from the moment rehearsals began, it became apparent that their acting styles, especially their approaches to comedy, stood on completely different foundations. Streep approached the role of Jane Adler with the precision of a surgeon. For her, comedy wasn't just about laughs, it had to be rooted in emotional truth. She delved deeply into the character's psychology, examining motivations and emotional arcs with meticulous care. Every pause, gesture, and vocal inflection was carefully planned to reflect a genuine emotional journey. It wasn't just about what would amuse the audience, but what would feel authentic for a woman dealing with complex emotions tied to love, regret, and identity in midlife. Script supervisor Diane Dreyer observed, "Meryl approaches comedy like a surgeon, every laugh must come from character truth." In stark contrast, Baldwin brought a free-flowing, instinctual energy to the role. He was a master of physicality and timing, thriving on spontaneity. His comedic approach leaned into improvisation, often discarding rigid preparation in favor of trusting the moment. Instead of breaking down each scene in advance, he preferred to let lines and movements emerge naturally as the cameras rolled. For Baldwin, comedy's magic came from its unpredictability and the thrill of trusting his gut. This clash of styles became especially problematic in emotionally heavy scenes where the script was crucial to Streep's performance rhythm. Baldwin frequently veered off script, adding impromptu remarks or altering lines without prior discussion. While this spontaneity invigorated parts of the set, it disrupted Streep's carefully constructed emotional framework. She had to adapt in real time, abandoning her layered preparation to match Baldwin's improvisational detours. For an actor like Streep, who builds her characters step by step through extensive rehearsal, this unpredictability became a significant obstacle. Her growing frustration led her to request more rehearsal time, not due to doubt, but out of necessity, in an effort to stabilize her performance amid Baldwin's ever-shifting delivery. The set soon took on an air of strained politeness. Outwardly, both stars maintained professionalism, but beneath the surface, their discomfort was clear. Their shared scenes required ongoing adjustment, not just in timing, but in emotional tone and energy. The disappointment was particularly acute because, on paper, they seemed like the perfect match. Streep's grounded emotional depth and sharp comic instincts combined with Baldwin's bold wit and easygoing charm should have lit up the screen. Instead, their creative disconnect highlighted an often overlooked truth in filmmaking: real chemistry isn't just about skill or talent, it depends on a shared creative rhythm. Despite the friction, both actors managed to deliver impressive performances, a testament to their dedication and professionalism. However, industry insiders noted that their dynamic never warmed into a true working rapport. They didn't act together as a unified pair, but rather in parallel, each following an artistic logic that the other couldn't fully understand. A similar tension marked Meryl Streep's long-standing disconnect with Jack Nicholson. Their professional distance stands as one of the quietest yet most enduring divisions in modern film history, not sparked by scandal or personal rifts, but by a deep artistic incompatibility. Though both are widely hailed as acting powerhouses, their philosophies on performance were starkly opposed. Any serious attempts to collaborate during the peaks of their careers quickly fell apart, giving way to a long, cool distance marked by subtle disdain and mutual avoidance. In the late 1970s and throughout the 1980s, studio executives repeatedly floated the idea of pairing Streep and Nicholson in major dramatic projects, roles that demanded the weight of their combined talent. Yet time and again, initial enthusiasm faded once the two engaged in early meetings. The chemistry that seemed promising on paper failed to ignite in reality, stifled by their divergent creative approaches. Insiders revealed that those meetings laid bare a fundamental philosophical divide, one too vast to overcome. Meryl Streep, long admired for her disciplined, research-intensive approach to acting, treated her craft as a moral duty. She committed herself fully to mastering dialects, exploring historical backgrounds, conducting psychological research, and developing characters in painstaking detail. For Streep, authenticity wasn't just desirable, it was the essence of acting. Jack Nicholson, on the other hand, approached the art from a completely different angle. His performances, though often powerful, were based on instinct, charisma, and the iconic persona he had crafted since his early roles in Five Easy Pieces and Chinatown. Unlike Streep, he didn't transform into his characters, he filtered them through his own signature style, cool detachment, sardonic humor, and magnetic presence. For Nicholson, acting was about energy and presence, not extensive preparation. This contrast wasn't just academic, it showed in private exchanges. Juliet Taylor, a seasoned casting director who had collaborated with both actors on separate projects, once commented, "Jack represents everything Meryl considers wrong with modern movie stardom. He's more focused on being Jack Nicholson than on vanishing into a character, and that contradicts her entire philosophy of serious acting." For Streep, who saw every role as a duty to convey someone else's truth, Nicholson's relaxed, image-driven method came across as careless, even a betrayal of what she believed acting should be. Their tension occasionally surfaced in subtle ways at public events, masked by polite smiles and brief nods. Observers often sensed a coldness in their exchanges, two industry titans sharing the spotlight, yet clearly divided by deeply different creative values. Their artistic incompatibility became more obvious during the 1980s and 90s, a period when both were considered for leading roles in several major dramatic films. Some of those projects later received significant critical acclaim. While Nicholson was open to working with Streep, insiders revealed that she quietly declined any projects that involved him as a co-star. Directors quickly learned that pairing them was a non-starter. The final blow came when Nicholson began mocking method acting in interviews. In one particularly unforgettable instance, he dismissed detailed preparation as intellectual masturbation that blocked genuine emotional expression. Though he didn't name Streep directly, the implication was clear. Streep, widely seen as the gold standard for intense character immersion, took his remarks personally. She viewed them as a direct insult to her methodology and values. The suggestion that emotional honesty and hard work were somehow incompatible wasn't just offensive to her, it was artistically shallow. Though they never publicly feuded, their mutual avoidance became common knowledge within the industry. Over decades of attending the same awards shows, film festivals, and charity galas, they remained distant, cordially professional in public, yet personally and philosophically estranged. Their Cold War wasn't built on drama, but on principle. While Streep champions vanishing into her roles and prioritizing story over image, Nicholson has always leaned on his charisma and instinct. Neither method is objectively superior, but for these two giants, the divide was enough to keep them from ever sharing the screen, one of the most notable absences in modern cinematic history. A similarly quiet but telling divide emerged between Streep and Gwyneth Paltrow, representing another generation of Hollywood contrast. Unlike public scandals or on-set clashes, their tension stemmed from an unspoken clash of ideologies. While the two maintained a facade of politeness during the few times they crossed paths publicly, those familiar with the industry understood their dynamic reflected broader issues: discipline versus stardom, dedication versus convenience, legacy built through labor versus legacy inherited through privilege. Paltrow's rise in the mid-1990s came at a fortunate crossroads. She possessed charm, poise, and strong industry ties. As the daughter of actress Blythe Danner and director-producer Bruce Paltrow, she had access to roles that most aspiring performers could never reach. To the public, she appeared effortlessly elegant and confident. But to Streep, who had carved her path through relentless dedication to craft and an unwavering commitment to emotional depth, Paltrow's ascent raised red flags. It wasn't her beauty, fame, or family connections that bothered Streep. It was what they seemed to replace, the invisible, hard-won effort that defined serious acting. One industry veteran who had worked with both women explained, "Meryl thinks Gwyneth embodies everything that's wrong with today's stardom." To her, Gwyneth climbed to the top not through intense devotion or depth, but through timing and appearances. For Streep, acting has always been sacred, a calling that demands every ounce of one's energy, intellect, and soul. Her rise to the top wasn't built on hype or clever marketing, it was earned through preparation, respect for her craft, and technical excellence. This contrast became especially clear during the 1999 award season. That year, Gwyneth Paltrow won the Best Actress Oscar for Shakespeare in Love, a performance many within the industry considered charming but ultimately insubstantial. In contrast, Meryl Streep had given a more demanding and technically impressive performance in One True Thing. Though she remained outwardly gracious, those close to her say she was quietly disheartened by the result. According to friends, she referred to that year's Oscar race as more of a marketing campaign disguised as an award of merit. While Streep never publicly criticized Paltrow by name, her interviews following the ceremony carried a tone that many interpreted as critical. In one, she expressed concern over the industry's increasing shift from hard-earned preparation to simple popularity, remarks widely viewed as a thinly veiled commentary. Journalists and insiders noticed that she often avoided mentioning Paltrow, even when asked directly about younger actresses. Instead, she focused her praise on performers like Cate Blanchett, Amy Adams, and Jessica Chastain, women known for their deep research and transformative performances. Her compliments usually included terms like technically fearless or fully immersed, words she notably never used in reference to Paltrow. Whenever the two actresses did cross paths at industry events or award ceremonies, their interactions were limited to polite smiles and brief conversations. Publicly, they fulfilled the roles expected of two prominent Hollywood figures, but those familiar with the scene sensed a definite chill. As Paltrow expanded her brand beyond acting into lifestyle ventures, Streep began to see her as a symbol of how the industry was moving away from the serious, grounded values it once upheld. Many believed the rift between them wasn't just personal, it represented a deeper generational and ideological divide. Streep, a classically trained actress who valued acting as a deeply disciplined craft, stood on one side. Paltrow, a product of a newer celebrity culture that emphasized branding and public image, represented the other. To this day, the quiet tension between them is one of Hollywood's most well-known unspoken truths. It has never been made into tabloid drama or openly acknowledged, but those familiar with the industry's internal dynamics understand the significance. In an era where social media influence and marketability often carry more weight than skill, the dynamic between Streep and Paltrow serves as a reminder that genuine talent and dedication don't always lead to recognition. The divide between traditional artistic discipline and modern celebrity culture can be far greater than it appears. Another notable example of professional tension in Streep's career came during the filming of Kramer vs. Kramer, where her working relationship with Dustin Hoffman became one of Hollywood's most tense behind-the-scenes stories. The film went on to win 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Actor for Hoffman, and Best Supporting Actress for Streep. Yet behind the critical success was a working environment riddled with personal and artistic conflict. The source of this tension lay in their opposite approaches to acting. Streep, with a strong foundation in theater and a methodical, text-focused process, approached her character Joanna Kramer with analytical precision. Every pause, glance, and movement was carefully thought out. To her, acting meant understanding a character's inner world, building a backstory, exploring motives, and structuring her performance with intention and care. Hoffman, however, came from a method acting background and preferred to lose himself entirely in character, even off-camera. His approach was rooted in spontaneity and emotional risk, often resulting in unscripted actions that blurred the line between acting and reality. This clash in methods became evident quickly. Streep, expecting mutual collaboration and clear communication, instead found herself responding to Hoffman's impulsive choices. In one especially controversial incident, he slapped her during a scene without warning, something not in the script and never previously discussed. For Streep, it wasn't just a breach of personal space, but a violation of professional respect. Cinematographer Nestor Almendros later described the difference between them with a striking analogy. Streep, he said, was like a finely tuned instrument, precise and deliberate, while Hoffman treated acting more like a free-form jazz performance, unpredictable and raw. Their contrasting temperaments made working together difficult, despite the powerful chemistry their performances produced on screen. Director Robert Benton often had to mediate between them, trying to maintain harmony while acknowledging the emotional intensity they brought to the project. Much of the film's power stemmed not only from the script but from the real-life strain between its two leads. The tension, miscommunication, and emotional volatility were genuine, and scenes like the courtroom showdown felt deeply authentic because they mirrored the friction behind the scenes. Lines such as, "You just married the wrong person, that's all," or "I tried," resonated more because they reflected not only the characters' struggles but also the off-screen disconnect between the actors. Streep's emotional restraint and Hoffman's raw explosiveness created a dynamic that felt true to life. However, the process left a lasting impact on her. In later interviews, she described the collaboration as professionally beneficial but personally draining. Though the role helped shape her early career, the experience was one she found deeply uncomfortable. She never worked with Hoffman again and has spoken of that chapter with caution and reserve. What's your take on the actors Meryl Streep has had conflicts with? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.